Hello and welcome to this week's deep dive. Of course, it's Tuesday, so we bring you these deep dive videos every week. And it's not just deep dive videos. On a Wednesday, we have our 10-day trend. On a Friday, we do our Weather Studio Live. And of course, if you're subscribed, then you already know this. But if you are new here, then welcome. And do feel free to subscribe, give this video a like. And if you do have any comments or questions as we go through this video, then do leave them in the comment section. We do tend to take a look, and sometimes we pick out a few and answer them on our Weather Studio Live on Friday at 12:15. So it's always worth leaving a comment or question if you do have one. And this deep dive should be an interesting one. We've got a couple of interesting topics to talk about. You might have noticed this morning the weather feels quite different after quite a hot, dry bank holiday weekend and after quite a hot, dry summer as well. So we're going to take a look at the change this week, why we're starting to see a bit of a change. We're going to take a look at summer so far. Meteorological summer does come to an end this weekend. I'll get over it eventually, I'm not too upset. And we're also going to be taking a look across the world as well. There's been some interesting videos, pictures you might have seen of interesting weather phenomena happening over into the US. But I'm not going to give too many spoilers because we're going to talk about it in a moment. So yes, let's start off with the weather this week then. High pressure no longer dominating our weather, but instead we've actually got this area of low pressure swirling around in an anti-clockwise direction just to the northwest of the country. Now I've just played this through because what it does is it swings around in that anti-clockwise direction. It picks up frontal systems from the Atlantic and it drags them across the UK. So Wednesday in particular could bring quite a hefty frontal system moving through, so heavy, possibly thundery showers moving through here. And we remain to see low pressure to the northwest of the country continuing to drag in either frontal systems or more occluded features, some more organised bands of showers. But at times we will see systems like this one later Thursday into Friday, where we'll see more persistent outbreaks of rain move through along with these systems here. And what this area of low pressure starts to become, it is actually a meteorological term. It becomes what we call a flabby low. And that basically means that it's not such a well-defined area of low pressure anymore. The winds aren't as strong as what it was initially when it first formed out into the Atlantic. It doesn't have a well-defined frontal system bringing through outbreaks of rain. And it just becomes a bit of almost a blocking low in a way. And it just continues to drag in frontal system after frontal system. So this is essentially what it is by the end of the week, a flabby low. Let me know if you knew that one already. But still, even as we head into the weekend, we continue to see that low pressure dragging in systems from the Atlantic, particularly as we head into Saturday. It does look like possibly an area of low pressure, once again, just pushing into parts of the south and southwest. Now, what I will say with this one is keep an eye on the forecast. There's quite a lot of variability with different models around what this system could potentially do. At the moment, we're kind of accepting our global model. This is the model run I'm showing you here, with an area of low pressure moving into parts of the southwest. Could bring some quite heavy spells of rain, possibly some strong gusty winds with it as well. But yeah, just keep an eye on the forecast. Saturday's still a few days away, so there's a possibility that that may change. But changeable is certainly the word to describe it. Even from Sunday, we'll still remain in that westerly flow, that polar maritime air mass. So showers, longer spells of rain. At times, it could be quite breezy, particularly in the west as well. But hopefully some brighter interludes in between. That's the good thing about showers. You do tend to get some sunny spells in between as well. So if you're sad the high pressure is gone, it's not going to be a total washout for many of us. So let's take a look at some of that detail then. So I'm going to switch this one here. I'm just going to skip over to Wednesday because Tuesday's pretty much over by the time this video goes out. So as I already mentioned on Wednesday, that initial frontal band moving through, it could be quite an intense feature. So some quite heavy downpours, some intense showers moving through, some quite strong gusty winds, and potentially some thunder and lightning too as it moves its way through. So it moves its way into parts of the west-southwest during the early hours of the morning. So potentially quite a wet commute if you're still on your way to work and not enjoying the summer holidays like some of us are. So this could potentially be quite an intense feature as it moves its way through on Wednesday. Behind it, Thursday, Friday, you can see looks like a fairly similar picture, those showers, but some of them are going to be quite constant showers, particularly in the west, where you could start to just see shower after shower and it's going to seem like quite a wet day. But areas further east, perhaps not seeing as many of those showers. So once again, those brighter, sunnier interludes in between. But it's going to start to get quite gusty at times, particularly as we head into Friday, western areas in particular. So around coastal areas, we could start to see quite strong gusts, potentially some quite high waves as well as we start to move in towards the end of the week. And once again, these showers could be quite heavy and intense. The odd rumble of thunder is likely as we head through the week as well. So keep an eye on the forecast, definitely keep an eye out for warnings as well. There are some models indicating that some of those rainfall totals could start to push their way up, particularly in western areas. So a chance we might possibly see a rain or thunderstorm warning. So keep an eye out on our website, across our social media channels, because as soon as those warnings are issued, we'll let you know. And Saturday as well, another one to watch. Yes, it does look like potentially Wales, parts of south and southwestern parts of England could see quite a wet and miserable start to the weekend. A very different weekend to the one we just had. So once again, keep an eye on the forecast then. So some longer spells of rain certainly possible. And then elsewhere across northern areas, blustery showers continuing. Once again, could be some heavy thundery downpours along there. Now, what about temperatures? We've just seen a record-breaking bank holiday Monday. England, Wales and Northern Ireland, I believe. Oh, maybe it's Wales and Northern Ireland have had some record-breaking temperatures this bank holiday Monday. But are the warm temperatures sticking around? Not quite. We can see here on Tuesday, we're still pushing up into the mid to high 20s. Last I checked, we'd reached about 27 degrees in Kent. So it's still certainly a warm day, even if you did wake up to a wet start this morning, today on Tuesday. But notice through the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we do see a slight drop in those temperatures. On Wednesday, eastern areas still holding on to perhaps the mid-20s. So parts of East Anglia, Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, for example, might just start to see quite a warm day. If they manage to stay away from those showers, it could still be quite a pleasant day. But those temperatures are starting to drop through the week, but nevertheless, they're still going to be in the high teens, low 20s, so more towards average for the time of year. But if you do catch any sunnier breaks, it's still going to be quite warm. But more towards average for the time of year. Obviously this summer we've had 4 heat waves, so some quite intense temperatures. So for many it's probably just going to feel quite a bit more pleasant. And overnight temperatures as well. We've had above average temperatures for most of summer across our minimum temperatures, so our minimum overnight temperatures. So those will start to come more towards average for the time of year as well. So a little bit of a cooler feel, but nevertheless it's still going to feel quite nice in the sunshine. So a changeable week ahead, things starting to turn a little bit more changeable from the west, showers, longer spells of rain, starting to feel a little bit cooler. But that's certainly not what it's been for summer so far. In fact, we've just released a press release, so take a look at our website if you want a bit more information over our summer stats. But it does look like we are going to see one of the warmest summers on record, the warmest, in fact, overtaking 2018. And this is all to do with average temperature over the summer. Now, as I've already mentioned, meteorological summer, that does actually end this weekend. So on Sunday, the end of August is when we see the end of meteorological summer. Astronomical summer will end on the 22nd of November when we have the autumn equinox. But we keep seasons every 3 months in order to help with our climate records. And it does look like, even though there's still a few days away, it does look like this is going to be the warmest summer on record, because for it not to be, temperatures would have to be around 4 degrees below average over the next few days, and the forecast certainly isn't indicating that. So provisional stats at the moment, but nevertheless, it is looking likely that we are going to see the warmest summer of the year. So as I've already mentioned, that's going to be overtaking 2018, where the average temperature, that was 15.76 degrees Celsius, and we're currently running at around 16.13 degrees Celsius, so already beating the average temperature of 2018. Not only this, but it also knocks off the summer of 1976. Many of us can remember that summer, not me, but it has gone through in our historical records. We had intense heat waves lasting for around 2 to 3 weeks. So now if we see 2025 as one of the warmest summers, 1976 is no longer going to be in the top 5. And what you'll notice is all top 5 warmest summers will have occurred since the year 2000. So that's really indicating, you know, our changing climate, our warming climate, and we're starting to see those real intense temperatures over summer, adding on to the average temperature that we see that summer, and thus we're starting to see more of those in more recent years. But why was this summer so incredibly warm? We had June and July above average temperatures for the time of year. England actually recorded its warmest June on record. We've had 4 widespread heat waves this summer. And it's all down to high pressure. When we've had high pressure, either around the UK, so creating those dry, hot, settled conditions, or we've had the Azores high stretching up, giving us that southerly flow, so we've dragged in heat from the near continent. But whenever we've had high pressure affecting our weather, it's tended to stay for quite a long time. So giving us those dry, settled, sunny conditions, really adding on to the heat. Not only that, but we had a really dry spring that creates dry ground. We've had a marine heat wave. So sea surface temperatures around the UK have been well above average for the time of year. So these conditions combined means that heat, if it starts to build, it tends to linger, particularly if high pressure is dominating. And also minimum temperatures, overnight temperatures have widely been above average. So we've had many factors contributing to this summer being the warmest on record. Still provisional, but looking likely that we could see this summer as the top warmest summer on record. And obviously it's all down to our changing climate. Climate change, actually in the UK, we're warming at about 0.25 degrees Celsius per decade. Doesn't sound like a lot, but obviously it is having a big impact on our summers here in the UK. Now, what about a bit of a look ahead? We woke up this morning. It certainly was quite damp here in Exeter. I've just come back from holiday in Corfu where it was lovely, dry and sunny every day. So I wandered out in my sandals and walked straight into a puddle. A little bit embarrassing when you are literally a weather forecaster, but I wanted to stay in the holiday mode. But what's it looking like further ahead? Well, this actually is from our European model, and this shows precipitation compared to average. So it's our precipitation anomaly. And if we get these brown-orange colours, that indicates drier than average, but the green or the darker green colours show wetter than average. And this is from yesterday, so the 25th of August, so for the first week from the 25th, and this is into the second week. So this is over a 14-day period, this first and second chart here. And what can we see? We can see mostly green colours, so things tending to be wetter than average. There's certainly no signal for high pressure, another heat wave, a long prolonged dry spell, particularly over the next couple of weeks. There's no signal for that. So we're starting to see that change just in time for meteorological autumn. So western areas in particular, over the next week, largely going to be wetter than average. We've got those frontal systems, those showers moving through. And then as we head into the second week, it looks like we're going to continue into that pattern of Atlantic mobility and thus more wet weather on its way from the west. That's all I'm going to say on the weather ahead. I know sometimes people comment saying we don't talk about the weather ahead in deep dives. It's because then I step on Alex B's toes tomorrow when he does his 10-day trend. So I don't want to get told off again for doing that. So that's all I'm going to say. But if you want a little bit more detail on the next couple of weeks of weather, we do actually put out a 14-day forecast on our app on a Tuesday and Friday. And it's me doing it today. So if you want a short little video about the weather over the next couple of weeks, then take a look at our app. But yes, summer will be finishing as we head into this weekend. Meteorological autumn will start as we head into next week. But you might have noticed already there's been some talk I've seen on social media. Even my dad mentioned it to me that actually over the last week it has felt quite autumnal. I went for a little walk yesterday. I noticed there's berries on the bushes. Lots of trees look quite. The leaves look quite dead, or they've kind of fallen onto the ground. And this sometimes is actually referred to as a false autumn, and it does tend to happen when we have quite a long, dry, hot summer. And we've got, drought in large parts of the country, and trees tend to enter almost like a survival mode, and so they drop their leaves. They're not dying, but they're not really thriving. They're not photosynthesizing, so they drop their leaves, and that's basically to preserve the tree for the rest of the year and also for years to come. So Yeah, it definitely feels a little bit autumnal. If you've not noticed it out there, definitely take a look when you're next outside. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting because of the long dry summer. It almost feels like we're entering into early autumn, and it's certainly going to start to feel autumnal over the next couple of weeks. So now I'm going to talk about something completely different, something really interesting that's happened across the pond over into the US. I'm not going to tell you what it is straight away because some of you will probably already know. I know we've got a few Met heads in the comments that will probably know what this is, but this took place in Arizona, a big, large, dusty plume moving its way across the city. I took this video from the BBC website. So what is this? It's actually called a haboob, and this is quite a powerful dust or sandstorm that can take place particularly when we have quite severe convection. So not only as this moves through, it's bringing in dust and sand. You can see some flashes in this video actually. You can get some quite severe thunderstorms associated with this feature. Really hazardous. I think they had to close some of the airports in Arizona. Obviously visibility dramatically drops quite quickly. This kind of plume of dust can be several hundred meters high. They tend to move fairly quickly as well. So all of a sudden your visibility drops. It can be quite hard to breathe, and it's a real big hazard, particularly in terms of aviation. So I thought it'd be fun, why not, to go into a little bit of why these are created. So I've got my little desert area here, and you know I do love any excuse to draw. So I thought I'd just go into how these haboobs can be created. So it's a hot summer's day. We've got quite sandy, dry conditions, and so obviously some convection taking place. And as we already know, when we start to see convection taking place, the air starts to rise, it cools and condenses, and we start to see clouds form. Now these clouds will grow more and more, particularly if the heat is quite intense. So we start to see a bit of an updraft take place within the cloud. Here we go. And then obviously as the air within the cloud, it rises, condenses still, and obviously condenses, and we start to create little water droplets. There we go. They're supposed to be water droplets. And as these water droplets occur, condensation's taking place, and latent heat is actually released. And this further fuels the updraft within the cloud, and the cloud continues to grow. So we start to see those really big fluffy clouds eventually turning into cumulonimbus clouds, which I'm sure you already know. They have a bit more of a flatter top when they're a CB. But anyway, we start to see those really intense clouds form. Then what we see, just get rid of some of this, is obviously we start to see more and more raindrops occur, and some of these start to get quite heavy, and so the cloud starts to rain out. So we start to get a shower, right? But these raindrops are actually falling into air which is quite dry, and those raindrops actually evaporate. And in order to do so, it takes that heat from the near environment, and that creates a bit of a cold pool underneath that cloud. This is why I love clouds so much. It's so interesting that we start to see a bit of a temperature change at the base of this cloud, all because those raindrops are starting to evaporate. So we get a cool, dense plume of air just below the base of the cloud, and this creates a downdraft. And what we can see, particularly with really big cumulonimbus clouds, those downdrafts can be quite intense. So it's rapid air moving kind of southwards from the base of the cloud. So we start to see that air descend, and obviously in this kind of environment it will hit the ground and it will spread outwards. And in this environment it's obviously hitting down onto ground which is either dusty or sandy, and pushes its way horizontally. And then as a result of this, we do tend to get, particularly in the conditions that we saw in Arizona, we tend to get a gust front be produced as a result of that downdraft hitting the ground. And of course then we start to see a wall of cloud push its way along, like in that video that I saw, and with the sand or the dust below it, then that starts to get picked up, and then that starts to push horizontally at that base of the cloud. So then we start to see that big wall of cloud, that big wall of dust push its way. And it's not just, it's in all directions too, when that down front hits the ground out of the cloud. And we start to see that wall of dust push its way across, like what we saw in Arizona this weekend. Not only that, it was in Burning Man Festival. There's a few videos there online. Really dusty conditions, really poor visibility, all of a sudden, and then you get incredible images like this. So I thought that was really interesting because you don't see conditions like this every day, and sometimes it's just fun to go into a little bit of meteorological theory. But anyway, that is it for today. That is today's deep dive. Do keep an eye out for our press release all about the summer stats if you want a bit more information there. Do leave any comments or questions, and we'll be sure to take a look at some of those on Friday, 12:15. If you've not joined us already, it's really good fun. Me and Alex B will be there answering your questions live. And you can ask us anything, all to do with weather, climate, our jobs here at the Met Office. You can ask us anything. But otherwise, that's it from me. Make sure to give this video a like, make sure to give us a subscribe, and of course, we'll be here next Tuesday with another deep dive.